The awakening of humanity's sword. The deep space monitoring station Horizon hung in the void at the edge of human territory, a silent sentinel against the darkness. Inside, Captain Maya Rodriguez of the United Earth Defense Force stifled a yawn as she scanned the routine reports from her night shift crew. 15 years of service, and midnight watch was still mind-numbingly boring. "Captain, we've got something," called Lieutenant Cowrie from the communications station, his voice cutting through the quiet hum of equipment. "Signal pattern on long-range sensors. It's unusual." Rodriguez set down her coffee mug and crossed to his station. "Define unusual, Lieutenant." "Mathematical sequences, repeating patterns. Too ordered for natural phenomena. But it's not matching any known communication protocol in our database." His fingers danced across the console. "It's definitely artificial, and it's coming from deep in the Orion Spur, well outside mapped human space." The signal pulsed on the screen, a rhythmic pattern that seemed almost desperate in its repetition. "Can you decode it?" Rodriguez asked, leaning closer. "Working on it. The computer is finding fundamental mathematical principles that could serve as a translation basis. Whoever sent this wanted to make sure anyone could understand it." After 3 hours of intensive analysis, the AI translator had extracted enough of the message to make sense of it. The words scrolled across the main view screen. "Help. We are the Naru. The Vex Dominion destroys our worlds. Few remain. Please help. Coordinates follow." Within hours, the Emergency Response Council had convened in Geneva. Representatives from all Earth nations and colony worlds gathered in the chamber, their faces grave as they watched the decoded message. "What do we know about these species?" asked Councillor Zhang, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "Nothing about either the Naru or this Vex Dominion appears in our records." Admiral Okafor, head of Earth Defense, stood to address the council. "Nothing at all, Councillor. This is our first indication that these civilizations exist. Then we must proceed with extreme caution," countered Councillor Mbeki. "We all remember the Proxima incident. What appears to be a cry for help could easily be a trap." A heavy silence fell over the room. 20 years ago, humanity's first contact with an alien species had nearly ended in disaster. What had seemed like a peaceful greeting from the Proxima aliens had been a prelude to an invasion that Earth had barely survived. The scars of that conflict still ran deep. "We cannot ignore this," said Councillor Nakamura finally. "If this is genuine, an entire species could be facing extinction. Our own history demands we at least investigate." After hours of heated debate, the Council reached a decision. A small reconnaissance mission would be dispatched to the coordinates, under strict orders to observe and report without revealing Earth's location or engaging with either species. 3 days later, Captain Rodriguez stood in the launch bay of the scout ship Venture, preparing for departure. Her team was small but elite, 5 officers chosen for their experience and discretion. "Remember, this is strictly reconnaissance," Admiral Okafor reminded her. "Under no circumstances are you to engage. If there is a genuine need, report back, and we will decide our response then." Rodriguez nodded. "Understood, sir. We'll be back in 2 weeks." As the Venture departed Earth orbit and prepared for its jump to the coordinates, Rodriguez reviewed the mission parameters one last time. A simple reconnaissance mission. Observe, gather intelligence, return. She had no way of knowing that this cautious response to a distant plea would soon trigger the deployment of humanity's most secret and feared military force. The Venture emerged from jump space with a flash of light, systems automatically running silent as they entered the coordinates from the distress signal. What they found was a binary star system with 7 planets. The signal had come from the third world, a blue-green sphere that might have been beautiful if not for the orbital battle taking place above it. 2 vessels detected, reported Lieutenant Chen, the sensor officer. One appears to be a transport or research vessel, heavily damaged. The other is... She paused, rechecking her instruments. Massive, Captain. At least 15 times larger. definitely a warship. On the view screen, they watched as the larger ship fired upon the smaller one, tearing through its defenses. Even from this distance, they could see pieces of hull shearing away. Life signs, Rodriguez asked. Scanning. I'm reading approximately 20 beings on the smaller vessel. Their life signs are fluctuating. The larger ship has a complement of over 500. They're broadcasting, Captain, Carey said. Same signal pattern we received on Earth. Rodriguez made her decision. Move us closer, but maintain stealth. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with before we do anything. As they approached, the translator worked on the real-time transmissions. The voice that filled the bridge was high and melodic, but the fear in it was unmistakable. Please, anyone who hears. We are the Naru. The Vex Dominion is exterminating our kind. This is our last research vessel. Help us. Rodriguez watched as the Vex ship fired again, crippling the Naru vessel's engines. How many other Naru ships in the system? She asked. None detected, Captain, Chen replied. According to my scans, this appears to be the last one. Rodriguez took a deep breath. Her orders were clear, observe and report only. But 20 lives hung in the balance, and the venture had the element of surprise. Drop stealth. Position us between the ships, she ordered. Open a channel to the Vex vessel. The bridge crew stared at her in shock, but moved to comply. This is Captain Maya Rodriguez of the Earth Vessel Venture, she broadcast. Cease your attack immediately. The only response was a barrage of weapons fire. The Venture rocked as its shields absorbed the hits. They're not much for diplomacy, muttered the tactical officer. Target their weapon systems only, Rodriguez commanded. Selective fire. I want to disable, not destroy. The Venture's precision strikes took the Vex vessel by surprise, temporarily knocking out its forward weapons array. While the larger ship reeled, Rodriguez ordered a rescue operation. 2 shuttles launched toward the damaged Naru vessel, retrieving the survivors just as the Vex ship began to withdraw. In the medical bay, Rodriguez met the Naru for the first time. They were slender beings with iridescent skin that seemed to shift color with their emotions. Their leader, who introduced itself as Cyan, was weak but conscious. You answered our call, Cyan said, its voice musical even through the translator. We had sent our message into the void with little hope. What's happening here? Rodriguez asked. Who are the Vex? Cyan's skin darkened to a deep blue. The Vex Dominion controls nearly a third of this galactic arm. They either subjugate species as labor forces or eliminate those they deem useless or threatening. We Naru are scholars and scientists. We refuse to build weapons for them. So they chose to eliminate us. How many of your people are left? Fewer than 10,000, hiding in remote outposts. We are the last scientific vessel, carrying our species' knowledge and history. If we had been destroyed, Rodriguez nodded grimly. We need to return to Earth immediately. Our leaders will want to hear this directly from you. As the Venture prepared to jump back to human space, Rodriguez composed her report to the Council. She knew her actions had exceeded her authority, but she also knew what the Council's response would have to be. The Vex Dominion had just made a catastrophic mistake. They had revealed themselves to humanity. Deep beneath the surface of Earth's moon, in a facility unknown to most of humanity, General Helena Chen received the emergency alert she had been waiting for. After 20 years commanding Earth's ultimate contingency plan, the day had finally come. She walked through the massive underground hangar where thousands of soldiers stood ready for deployment. Ships of all sizes filled the cavernous space, each built for one purpose: war. General, her executive officer approached. The Council has given the authorization. The Annihilation Force is activated. Chen nodded, her face betraying no emotion though her heart raced. Send the wake-up call. All units prepare for immediate deployment. Throughout the secret base, alarms sounded. Soldiers who had trained for years, knowing they might never be called upon, now moved with practiced efficiency. This was why they existed. As the Venture docked at Luna Station, Rodriguez stared in amazement at the massive military complex hidden beneath the lunar surface. "What is this place?" she asked the officer who met her. "Welcome to the home of the Annihilation Force, Captain," the officer replied. "General Chen is waiting for you and your guests." The Dodorative of Earth. General Helena Chen stood before the assembled command staff, her presence commanding the room despite her average height. Behind her, a holographic display showed hundreds of vessels, the previously secret Annihilation Force fleet. "For those of you just joining us," Chen said, her voice carrying to every corner of the briefing room, "the Annihilation Force was created after the Proxima War as humanity's ultimate insurance policy. We built this force in secret, hoping we would never need to use it, but preparing for the day when humanity might face an existential threat." She gestured to Cyan, who stood beside Captain Rodriguez. "That day has come." Cyan stepped forward, its skin now a pale green. "The Vex Dominion controls thousands of worlds. Their fleets number in the tens of thousands. They have crushed civilizations far more advanced than yours. And now, they know you exist." Murmurs filled the room. Chen raised her hand for silence. "This is what we trained for," she said, her eyes moving from face to face. "We are not peacekeepers. We are not explorers. We are humanity's last line of defense, and we will respond with everything we have." She brought up images extracted from the Naru databases showing Vex atrocities on conquered worlds. The room grew quiet again. "Operation Thunderstrike begins in 24 hours. All ships will deploy to these coordinates." She indicated points on a star map. "Our first priority is to establish a defensive perimeter around Earth and our colonies. Then we strike." After the briefing, Rodriguez found Chen studying tactical displays. "General, I had no idea this existed. An entire fleet hidden for decades." "After the Proxima War, we learned a harsh lesson," Chen replied without looking up. "The galaxy is not a friendly place, Captain." "The Vex ships are enormous," Rodriguez said. "And according to Cyan, there are thousands of them." Chen's expression didn't change. "Size doesn't win wars, Captain. Determination does." She pointed to Earth on the star map. "Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We've gotten very good at it. The Vex are about to learn why other species should fear us." As Rodriguez left, she saw spacecraft launching from the lunar surface. The first wave of humanity's response was on the move. The jump gates opened like blue tears in the fabric of space. One by one, the ships of the Annihilation Force emerged in Naru territory. First came the scout ships, then the destroyers, and finally the massive carriers. In less than an hour, over 200 human warships had arrived. On the command deck of the flagship Retribution, General Chen watched the tactical display. Red triangles marked known Vex positions across 9 star systems. "All ships report ready, General," her XO reported. Chen nodded. "Begin Protocol Thunderstrike." Her orders went out to the fleet. Immediately, the human forces split into 9 battle groups, each heading toward a different Vex outpost. "The element of surprise won't last long," Chen said. "We need to hit as many targets as possible before they realize what's happening." In another part of the ship, Captain Rodriguez worked with Cyan and a team of human intelligence officers. The Naru had provided detailed maps of Vex positions and patrol routes. "Their communication system relies on these relay stations," Cyan explained, indicating several locations. "If you can disable them, the Vex will have trouble coordinating their response." Rodriguez nodded. "We'll make those priority targets." The first battle began at a small Vex mining outpost. 3 human destroyers dropped out of jump space and opened fire without warning. The Vex ships scrambled to respond, but they were too slow. Within minutes, the outpost was reduced to debris. Similar reports came in from other battle groups. The Vex, accustomed to being the aggressors, were unprepared for such coordinated strikes. On a Vex command ship, Admiral Krell received the alarming reports. "What species is attacking us?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir," replied his officer. "Wait. Intercepted communications suggest they call themselves humans." Krell frowned. "Humans? I've never heard of them. They appear to have responded to the Naru distress signal." He laughed dismissively. "Another weak species rushing to their doom. Send the Third Fleet to crush these humans." But the Third Fleet never received the order. Human strike teams had already destroyed the communication relays. Back on the Retribution, Chen received the battle reports. "All initial targets neutralized," her XO announced. "Minimal casualties on our side." Chen nodded. "Phase 2. Move on to secondary targets." The human fleet pushed deeper into Vex territory. Their tactics confused the enemy, who were used to fighting species that followed predictable patterns. Humans did not. Some ships charged straight into battle, while others used stealth. Some targeted military installations, while others went after supply lines. On the fourth day, the Retribution's sensors detected a large Vex force gathering. "They're finally organizing a response," Chen said. "Prepare for heavy resistance." Rodriguez entered the command deck with Cyan. "General, we've intercepted Vex communications," she reported. "They're confused about our tactics." She smiled slightly. "They seem afraid." Cyan stepped forward. "I studied the messages. The word human is spreading through their ranks. Their soldiers are asking what humans are, why they fight so strangely." Chen turned to her tactical display. "Let's give them something else to fear. Target their flagship." The Retribution moved into position, accompanied by 2 destroyer escorts. The Vex flagship was massive, nearly 3 times their size. "All weapons locked," reported the tactical officer. "Fire," Chen ordered. The Retribution's main guns lit up, sending beams of energy straight through the Vex shields. The destroyers followed with missile barrages. The enemy flagship broke apart, its debris scattering across space. Cyan watched with wide eyes. "How did you penetrate their shields so easily?" Rodriguez explained. "We analyzed the shield frequency from our first encounter. Our weapons are now tuned to pass right through them." In the following hours, the human fleet captured a Vex command ship intact. Special forces boarded and secured its computer systems. "We have access to their entire network," Rodriguez reported to Chen. "Defense plans, fleet positions, everything." Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Good. Now we know exactly where to hit them next." Across Vex territory, the news spread. Humans were coming, and they showed no mercy. 2 weeks had passed since the first human attacks. The Vex Dominion was finally responding with full force. Thousands of warships poured into the contested systems from across their empire. On the Retribution's bridge, Chen watched as red triangles filled the tactical display. "They pulled forces from every corner of their territory," her XO said. "This is the largest fleet movement we've detected." Chen's face remained calm. "As expected. They're angry now." The first wave of the Vex counterattack hit the human forces stationed in the Rigel system. Hundreds of Vex ships against just 40 human vessels. "Rigel fleet reports they're outnumbered 10-1, the communications officer announced. "They're requesting permission to retreat." Chen studied the tactical display for a long moment. Then she opened a channel to all ships. "This is General Chen. The Vex have committed their forces exactly as we predicted. All units, execute Protocol Omega." Across 9 star systems, human ships that had appeared to be retreating suddenly changed course. Hidden reinforcements emerged from nearby nebulae and asteroid fields. And on the Retribution, Chen gave the order that would cement humanity's reputation across the galaxy. "Deploy the Nova warheads." From the Annihilation Force ships, hundreds of small, unremarkable missiles launched toward specific coordinates. These weren't aimed at the Vex ships, but at the stars themselves. "What are you doing?" Cyan asked, alarmed. Rodriguez placed a hand on the Naru's shoulder. "Ending this war." The Nova warheads detonated, creating artificial solar flares that swept across the battlefields. The human ships, protected by specially designed shields, weathered the storm. The Vex fleet, caught unprepared, was decimated. In the aftermath, Admiral Krell's damaged flagship received General Chen's transmission. "This is General Helena Chen of the Earth Annihilation Force. You came to our attention because you threatened a peaceful species who asked for our help. Now you understand what that means. Withdraw from all Nauru territories immediately. Any further aggression against them or any other peaceful species will be met with the full might of humanity. We will be watching." 3 months later, on a rebuilt Nauru world, Cyan stood with Captain Rodriguez watching the sunset. Most of the Annihilation Force had returned to Earth, leaving only a small protective fleet. "Your people are strange, Maya Rodriguez," Cyan said. "So fierce in battle, yet so gentle in peace." Rodriguez smiled. "We've learned the hard way that sometimes you need to be both. The Vex are already telling stories about humans. They say you are demons from the void. Good. Let them fear us. Fear might keep the peace longer than friendship sometimes." Cyan's skin shifted to a bright yellow. "The galaxy will never be the same now that humanity has stepped onto the wider stage. For the first time in centuries, I find myself hopeful for the future." As the sun set on the horizon, a new era dawned for both their peoples, and a new legend spread across the stars. Beware the humans and their Annihilation Force.